And ladies, don't act like you never did this, because I know a lot of you all ladies that's looking single and married. You may have called the chat line. You may have been on a dating site looking for a companion, looking for a boyfriend. Some of y'all, hey, you may have been looking for somebody for a one night stand, but hey, I ain't gonna say nothing about that. That's another story. But I found somebody. I met a guy, and we became friends. And one thing led to another. And yes, we had sex and stuff like that. And then I got pregnant. I was pregnant with my seventh child. And I knew I was pregnant, but I couldn't believe it because I didn't want to have no more children, because all my kids was like, they were not babies anymore. They were in their teenage years, going on their 20s and things like that. So I told him, and he was fine because he had a son, and he was fine. I'm not saying that the relationship was the best of relationship, because it wasn't the best of a relationship. It was okay, but it wasn't the best. Let's put it like this: it was horrible, and basically I wanted out. But that's another story too. But nevertheless, I told my mom, and how I told my mom was, me and the elder of my church, we were together one on the weekend, and she got out the car and went into the store, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, what if I tell you I was pregnant? So my mom went on and on and on and on about, you don't need no another child and yada yada and all this and this and that, and she was like very discouraging. Instead of encouraging me, she was discouraging me. I'm just being plain and real and simple and transparent. So I just told my mother, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I just said it to see what you say, because she was kind of negative, and I didn't need nobody to talk negative. I had enough of people talking negative to me, all my life, and to hear her talking negative about being pregnant and things like that, I didn't really want to hear it. So I said, I was just joking. I just wanted to see what you say, and I said, but anyway, let me call you back, because I really didn't want to hear her mouth anymore. So I just kind of lean my hand on my shoulder, and and just like, well, whatever. And I was kind of down. So it got to the point where, so I told the elder of my church, and y'all, she was fixing to beat me down. We were in my kitchen, because my house was sort of like the hangout spot sometimes, during the week and sometimes on the weekends. So she was in my kitchen. We were sitting at the table. I said, when in the breakfast nook area, and we were sitting at the table, and I told her, y'all, she was fixed. I felt her in the spirit. She was about to jump up and knock my head off my shoulders. And when I told her, she said, you know what? I ought to come over there and knock you out, beat you down. She said, but I'm not going to do that. She said, but I'm okay. She said, I knew something was going on with you, but I didn't know what. But I just, so we told the children, she helped me tell the kids and everything. They were excited, because they was going to have a little baby sister, baby girl. And we started playing and everything. And then all of a sudden, I started having some pains. And I was having the pains on my lower right side and my lower back down to my buttocks area. And some days the pain will be so unbearable. Then some days the pain will be okay. And then some days I would have to deal with the pain, go at work, and really couldn't take it, and I would just take Tylenol after Tylenol just to get rid of the pain. So one day I had this dream. And the dream God gave me, and the dream was like that God gave me, I was going to have a baby in church. In the middle of the sanctuary, y'all, I had a dream that I gave birth to a baby in the middle of the sanctuary while everybody was at church. We was at second service, because I usually went to second service. And the bishop was up there preaching. And they couldn't get me out of the sanctuary in time to have, to get back to the nursing station. So I wound up having a baby in the sanctuary, and they covered me with sheets and different things like that. And I yelled to the bishop, because he stopped. I said, "Don't stop preaching the word. Don't count on me. I want to hear the word while I'm pushing out this baby." So to make a long story short, I told the elder, and she said, maybe God trying to tell you something. I said, I don't know. I said, but what if I have a baby while the bishop been preaching? She said, girl, that would be something. I said, it surely would be something, wouldn't it? So I was still having these pains and still having these pains and still having these pains and still having these pains. And then one Sunday, I got up to go to church and I was in so much pain. I was in so much pain. And I was trying to get my son to get up to go to church, but he didn't want to go. He's being stubborn. Saying, I don't feel like going to church. And I said, boy, you going up out of here, because my kids went to church Sunday and Bible study. And when it was conference, my kids was in church all the time. And so he didn't go. I got on church van. And I was in so much pain. So much pain, to the point every time the van would hit a bump, I would say, and it would hit another bump. I was like, ugh. And in my mind, I was like, Jesus, please take this pain away. So when we got to church, first service was just ending. And I went to the bathroom, the bathroom, went to wipe myself, and I saw all this blood. And I was like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. What in the world's going on? So I told my daughter, I said, well, go get the elder. And I told the lady at the information desk, I said, I'm pregnant. And I just, it's a lot. I have a lot of blood coming off of me. So they went and got one of the nurses, and that was a member of the church, but she worked in the nurses station. And so they began to take me back in the back, and I couldn't hardly walk because the pain was so unbearable. All I could remember was going through the crowd and just almost falling to my knees. And they hurry up, got a wheelchair, took me back there, and this was just so much blood. And they put a pad there, and they wiped the blood from off my legs and different things. And then all of a sudden, everybody came in the back, and they went and got the elder. And so I saw, everybody stood around me, and they put their hands on me. They began to pray. And then I saw the bishop, armor bearer, and the elder that I knew. They went off to the side, and they began to pray. And they said something, and I was like, God, what's going on? I got to the hospital, and the hospital was just saying it was, I guess we call it an onset threat of a miscarriage. And so they said, they checked to make sure the baby was there. The baby was still there. Everything was okay, the heartbeat and everything. And I was about almost going on 3 months. And after a while, and that particular day, I went to the hospital, was the start date of me going back and forth to the hospital each and every day. I literally had to take off of work for a whole week because I would bleed every day, and I was bleeding every day, and I would go to the hospital, and the doctor would tell me the baby is there. See it, we went on the screen, saw it on a monitor, saw it moving, saw the heart beating and everything, but the baby was there. And every day for 7, I tell y'all, ladies, it was 7 days. And then they called it a spontaneous miscarriage. But I never heard no woman, it would take a woman 7 days to have a miscarriage. Never heard nothing like that in a day in my life. And I would go back and forth to the hospital, but the baby was there. Everything was fine. And I tell the doctor, I said, ain't nothing fine. I said, something wrong with me, because I shouldn't be feeling like this. So on the 6th day, I came home from the hospital again, and I sat in my dining room, and I called one of the reverends on the phone. But before that morning, that Friday, that Saturday, one of the girls at the church had blessed me. She has a traveling hair salon. So she came over and she blessed me. She done my toe. She gave me a pedicure and a manicure, and she done my hair. And she took a long time to do it, y'all. Why? I don't know why. Because she stood right there, a couple of distance away from me, and she was just praying. So I just let her pray. I let her pray, and the whole time she was praying while she was doing my nails, holding my feet, praying while she was doing my hair and everything. And so I went to the hospital that night because I laid down in the bed, and all of a sudden, you know how, ladies, our water break when we have children? All of a sudden, my water broke, and then all it was just blood. It was a gush of blood, just nothing but blood. And I called my son because I slept I had to sleep downstairs. I ain't feel like climbing the steps. And I called my son from upstairs and hit my son's room was all the way on the third, well, that room was up in the foyer. And I had to call him and I said, come down, I need you to call an ambulance. And so I went to the bathroom and I started seeing chunks and stuff. Y'all, I'm very transparent. Started seeing chunks and stuff. And I could remember they said, you know, you see stuff like that, put in the bag so they can identify it. I went to the hospital and they still said I was fine. They sent me home and I sat at the table in the dining room and I called one of the reverends of another church because my kids went to the after school program at the church across the street and we were very close. And I called her and I asked could she pray with me. She prayed with me, and all she said, you need to let the will of God be done. Stop holding on, and let God do what He need to do. Just paraphrasing. So after that, I sat at the table in the dark, and I started crying, and I said, God, let Your will be done. I said, not my will, but let Your will be done, God. I said, so be it. I'm okay, God. And I laid down, went to sleep. The next day, I had to be rushed to the hospital, and I had a miscarriage on Sunday. It started Sunday before, but it took 7 days because I was holding on to something that God was trying to. It was a whatever, but I was holding on to something that God was trying to allow to take place. So I went to the emergency room and they took me in the back, put me up on the table. The doctor put the little probe thing and was looking. He said, well, it was like 1 minute we saw the baby, and he said the baby there, and then he waited for a while. He came back and he said, I'm gonna look again, and he looked again. The baby was gone, and so they had to make sure everything was gone out of me. The baby was gone, and I had a miscarriage. So the one nurse, she took a pill, and she said this pill going to help get the remaining whatever's left over out of you. So as soon as she gave me that pill, I'm not going to tell you where she gave it at. Put the pill at. But as soon as that pill worked fast. So I got myself together. They cleaned me up and everything, and as I stood up, I felt this big blob fall out of me. And I told the nurse, I put a little Depend thing. She gave me some Depends because the blood was so much, and she said, use these. And I told her, I said, something just fell out of me. And she said, huh? I said, something big fell out of me. I felt it drop on the, heard it. And she said, move. She said, move forward a little bit. So I moved forward, and she looked, and she said, oh, Jesus, oh, God. And she said, don't turn around. Don't step backwards. But I knew it was the baby. It just, everything just came out, and it was on the floor. And I heard it. I was crying. I went home. The elder came pick me up, and I was crying and everything. And I didn't say, why, God, why? But it just hurt it because I never had a miscarriage. And that day I understood how women felt when women experience when they have a miscarriage, how they felt on the inside when they had a miscarriage. So the next day, I said I wasn't going to mope around. The elder, she came and she said, well, I'm come pick you up and we're going to go to lunch. And I said, okay. So I got myself together. I fixed my hair and everything. I put tracks in my hair, put my hair in a ponytail, put some makeup on. I put me a nice little outfit on and everything. She came pick me up. We went to her job, and I seen the reverend. And then the reverend looked at me. She said, Sharita, you look so beautiful. You glowing. You look good. I said, thank you. And then the elder had came over my house. She brought some games over the house to play with to play with the kids with. And after the kids played with the games, and they went upstairs to go watch TV, and me and her was just sitting there and we were talking. And all of a sudden she said, I'm gonna tell you, but God would not let me tell you. So she began to tell me a story of how she saw me every day. And she said, Sharita, every day I would see you, you were dying. I said, huh? What are you talking about? She said, you were dying. She said, your countenance was just dying. Everything. She said, I saw the spirit of death walking with you. beside you, behind you, around you every single day while you were carrying this baby. And she began to tell me, she said the enemy had attached the spirit to the baby. And she said, and if God would allow me to have that child when it was time for me to give birth, I would have died in giving birth to the baby. She said, so don't look at this as if your child is dead. She said God had to allow this to take place, allowed it to take place, because you can't die, because you have so much on the inside of you that you have to fulfill for the kingdom of God. Just paraphrasing. So it was a spirit that was attached to the baby that I was carrying. The enemy sent a spirit to kill me in childbirth. And I didn't know I was dying, because I was saying normal, I was fine, but she saw the spirit of death walking with me every day, and she said all I could see is a part of you just drifting away. She said it was death. You were just literally a walking zombie, basically. And so after that, she prayed with me, and she said, you should have waited. She said, sometimes as women we tend to get lonely, and we jump out there and we find these boyfriends and different things like that, instead of waiting on the man of God that God has for us. And sometimes we could have missed him in the process of us going out there trying to find a piece of meat ourselves. So I'm just telling you that story, ladies, to encourage you, not to discourage you, but to encourage you to wait on your man of God. Sometimes the enemy will send something that will attach itself to a person, anything, to kill you. And as I stated in my testimony, the enemy wanted to kill me at childbirth. But you know something? Look at me now, because I'm still here, still rolling, still balling, still the boss, still look good. Can't nobody tell me nothing but God. But nevertheless, got to keep pushing on. Got to keep moving forward. Can't let my circumstances knock me down. Hey, I'm better than that. God created me in his likeness, out of his image. And I have a testimony to share with you. So stay tuned for many videos that I will be sharing with you ladies and men as well, of my testimony, because we are overcomers by our testimony. And I hope this video blessed you today as it blessed me to share my testimony with you.